Yo, Bit Squad, welcome back to the channel. Today, you're going to be watching episode 20 of my podcast, Beards and Bitcoins, along with my co-host, Jay Chains. We were joined this week by Anthony Pompliano, aka Pomp, one of the most recognized people in all of the crypto space. So I really hope you guys enjoy this conversation that we had talking all things crypto.
Welcome back to your newest favorite podcast, Beards and Bitcoins, where BitBoy and J-Chains get together each week to talk about crypto and things happening in the community. They will bring you some special guests and giveaways, so make sure you're subscribed. For all show-related news, you can find the guys on various social media outlets. Everything is listed on the official show Twitter account, @BeardsBitcoins. Now, without further introduction, two dudes that have beards, like Bitcoins, and want to talk to you about both, BitBoy and J-Chains.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your favorite podcast. Big episode today, episode number 20 of the podcast. We certainly have come a long way since we started. Also got a very special guest, which we'll introduce in just a few minutes. I am your co-host, BitBoy. That is your other co-host, J-Chains.
What is up? What is up? Hope you've all had a great week. Quick shout out to the show sponsor, Huddle Fuel. You can find them on the web, huddlefuel.com, or on Twitter @HuddleFuel. Make sure you drop Beards Bitcoins for a promo code. It will save you 10%. It's always good to save 10%. Usually we do a giveaway with a contest, and we'll give away a bag of coffee. This week, I'd like to give the coffee away to our special guest of the show today. We've got Anthony Pomp on the show. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So we are thrilled. So we'll get all your information, and we'll go ahead and send you that bag of Huddle Fuel. You can pick your flavor blend. It's crypto themed coffee. Obviously, there's no crypto in it, just crypto themed coffee, but it is delicious. You will enjoy it. So,
wait, are you saying there's no utility token with this coffee? That's garbage. You know, we got to get on Nick about that. We got to get that auto.
Somebody did it. I promise. I don't know who it is, but I guarantee somebody did it.
Yeah. So, well, cool. Well, that brings us to the point of the show where we do our Twitter shout out. This is the Monarch Token Twitter shout out, sponsored by monarchtoken.io. You guys can find them. Crypto wallet. They're always having big announcements. Just had big upgrades and updates on their iOS and Android app. Make sure you guys check them out. So, okay. So for my Twitter shout out, I'm going to shout out an account that just started that I've been seeing a lot of people make comments about. It's a Crypto Joke Expert. That's XPERT, not with an E. And basically what he does, he explains jokes on crypto Twitter. And this guy's got a pretty good understanding of how crypto Twitter works and what goes on. It's definitely not a new person. I can tell by what he says. But it's a real funny account. You guys should check him out. Crypto Euclid just talked about him on his podcast a couple days ago. So you guys make sure to go check that one out. What about you, J-Chains?
I am going to shout out the guys at the Wild West Crypto Show down here in Texas. You can find them on Twitter @WWCSTX. They are actually co-throwing a crypto meetup down here in Blanco, Texas, April 6th with Bitcoin Ben. So BitBoy and I are actually going to be part of that. We'll be there doing live stuff. So make sure that if you're in the area or you're heading down to Texas in April, make sure that you stop by the meetup. So, Pomp, what about you, man? Who do you want to throw out a Twitter shout out today?
I'm going to give one to one of my partners, Jason Williams. He wasn't real big on Twitter about a year and a half ago, and he's figured it out. He just lights Twitter up with these GIFs and memes, and I told him that he's got to chill out because he's getting too good at it. I'm scared that he's going to become more popular than me. So I'll go ahead and give it to him. I actually don't even know what his account is. I think it's like J Williams PRTI or something. But he's real deal on Twitter.
That's cool. The memes and the GIFs are what makes the world go round, right?
Listen, for a guy who's got 3 daughters and definitely didn't grow up with Twitter in his hand, he's figured it out for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, glad to hear that. Glad to hear you're lifting him up instead of pushing him down if you think he's getting close to you. So that would be my strategy. If I knew somebody that was getting close to me, I would just be like, all right, guys, don't follow this guy, you know?
No, look, I mean, I hope that he becomes more popular than me, that he can take all the heat from the Twitter trolls instead of me.
Oh, man, they're vicious sometimes.
That's crazy because that's actually something we want to talk to you about. which is, you don't see a lot of people that are in the professional world that are really part of the crypto Twitter ethos, if that makes sense.
Yep.
They might come on there and make posts every once in a while, but I consider you to be kind of like a bridge, between the professional world. You've been on CNBC, different stuff, but you also aren't afraid to kind of get down with the common Twitter person, So can you just tell us a little bit about that, like kind of your involvement with Twitter and what is kind of your reasoning for your Twitter account?
Yeah, look, the way that I think about Twitter is just let's get it on, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is it's a place where people can throw out ideas, and if you come with something that's weak or incorrect, you're going to get smacked, frankly. And I think the thing that crypto Twitter brings is a level of transparency and this like attrition of ideas. So the best ideas survive and actually thrive, and then the really bad ones just get kind of smacked around. And so it wouldn't be fair for people with large accounts to tweet and then not engage with those who are asking questions or detractors. And I actually like the idea that I can put an idea out there to, whatever, 100, 150,000 people, whatever it is. And they will tell me why I'm wrong, or here's a different perspective, or go read this. I find it incredibly valuable for my own education. And then frankly, you get the trolls, you get kind of the haters, if you will, who doesn't matter what you say, they're not going to be a fan or enjoy it. And those are my favorite people. So I just favorite the tweet and keep on scrolling, and probably pisses them off. But the haters need some love too. So it's all good over here.
Yeah. So like I was saying, that's kind of something we want to talk to you about, because something that I've noticed, like there's been a lot of big internet battles lately on Twitter between different accounts. We've seen them, and I try my best to stay away from them. I got into it one time with somebody on Twitter, but I just let them do all the talking, and I made sure not to respond because I don't want a part of it. I don't want to go at somebody, because you really can't win an internet battle, in my opinion. You either come out.
What's the quote? It's never argue with a fool, right? Because those from afar can't tell who's who.
Exactly, and that's really kind of my strategy. I won't get into it with people, because you never come out looking good. You either come out looking like a jerk or like a dummy. Like that's the way a lot of people view that stuff. But one thing I've realized is that if we were to look back at like when we were in high school, we're probably all in our 30s. I don't know how old you are. Maybe you're 29. I don't know. But
no, I'm in my 30s.
Yeah, so we're all in our 30s. Like when we were going to high school and middle school, we didn't have, we didn't have the same kind of social media environment that kids have today. And the funny thing is, what we're experiencing on Twitter at our age is the exact same thing that kids experience every day that are in high school and middle school. And so I think that a large part of the problem in these arguments and debates we see on Twitter are actually due to the fact that they're grown men or grown women arguing with 18-year-olds and 22-year-olds. So what do you think about that? Is that kind of something, because crypto kind of covers all ages, that you encounter people that are just younger and have like a different mindset or outlook on life?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. I tweeted recently to somebody, and I said, there's a saying that the pen is mightier than the sword. But if that's the case, then a viral meme is like it's like a nuclear weapon. Yeah. Right. It's just, there's nothing that is more powerful in today's society, whether it's politics, whether it's business, etc. And I think a lot of it is there's just a different mindset, right? Kids who've grown up with Twitter or Instagram, they understand that humor, they understand how to create that content, they understand how to distribute that, they understand how to build followings, right? All that kind of stuff. And so it really is an unfair fight, right? You're asking people who are presented with this new medium, don't understand how to use it to the same degree, let's say kind of people under the age of 30. And so I'm actually 30 years old, which is a unique position to be in, because I'm just old enough to not have had it in high school, but just young enough to started to use it in college and really understood how to use it. But I couldn't imagine growing up with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all this stuff that these kids have today in high school. I mean, it would have just been a whole different ballgame, and probably not for the better. if we, my friends and I grew up with that stuff. So it's one of those things where I'm actually happy I have it now from a professional sense, but as a kid, I'm glad I didn't have it.
I absolutely agree with you. I'm 100%. I'm so happy that my internet or my life was not documented on the internet.
Oh man, I tell you, I mean, a lot of people who follow me know, like, I have a very bad past. Like, I was a drug addict for many years, from 17 to 24, and at 24 I got in a lot of trouble and had to go to rehab. And that was 12, almost 13 years ago. I've been sober ever since, and the crazy thing is, when I went in, before I went into rehab, there was no social media out there. Like, there was MySpace, that was it. And then and it was a long-term rehab, so when I got out, it was everywhere. And I was like, man, I really just missed the cut from having like really bad stuff on the internet, I look back on that and I'm like, man, because you see these people that attack each other on Twitter, they go and they find each other's social media evidence everywhere. I don't really have any, so, but I do think that I want to get your comment on this statement. This is a statement that I kind of came up with and I make a lot, which is that, to me, the education in crypto happens on YouTube and the community happens on Twitter. What do you think about that? Do you have a different perspective, or how important do you feel like the role of the community is?
Yeah, so I actually didn't understand how I think important or popular a lot of the YouTube kind of community and YouTube creators were early on. And only over the last probably 6 months really have it's come up a lot in conversation. And I've had people show me, hey, this account's really popular, or this account. A lot of trading stuff, I think, is popular because of the charts and the ability to kind of talk over or voice over it. But I think that the whole beauty of crypto, and then I'll actually show why it's a negative in some ways, is that it's very community-based or user-generated education, right? So that there's no blueprint, there's no textbook that was created. Everyone's kind of learned this as they've gone along, and you've got to rely on other people who have opinions or information to learn from. Now, we flip that around, you start thinking about like institutional investors, right? We've spoken with a ton of them, and at the end of the meeting, they say, hey, where can I learn more about this? Well, and I've joked before, like, what do you do? Say, hey, go follow, Whale Panda and Bully ESQ, right?
Right.
Now, I actually love those accounts. I think they're awesome, right? They're informative, they're funny. They've got kind of all of the ingredients that make, these types of accounts special and cool on Twitter. But the institutional investor looks back at you and says, you want me to do what? Who the hell, who is that, right? And so the pseudonymity involved in this stuff, and the lack of like what I'll call legacy validation is really hard for some people to wrap their head around. But once you dive in, you realize, look, it doesn't matter what the name on the account is. It doesn't matter if you know the background or not. People either post good information or not. And if they post great information, then you're off to the races.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing, but also, kind of it's the flow of the information that they give. So if you have one guy that's putting out good information, but it's every 10th tweet, and the 9 other ones are about what he ate for breakfast, or what this other guy said, then it's going to be hard for the institutional person that's professional, that doesn't really have the time to sit and go. Like, I'm embarrassed how much time I spend on Twitter every day. I've been talking aliens on Twitter, on crypto Twitter, for like the last 48 hours.
You were pretty busy talking about aliens.
Oh man, I tell you what.
Do you think they're real?
No.
You think there's aliens out there?
Personally, and this is my personal opinion. Personally, I do not believe in intelligent life outside of our Yeah, I know. Listen, it's just my personal opinion. I've done a lot of research on it, and the only argument for it is this. Oh, it's got to be because the universe is so big. Like, that's the only argument. There's no other argument for it. We haven't found another planet that meets all the qualifications that would sustain life, but they may be out there wherever. It depends on if the universe is infinite. But the point is I spend an infinite amount of time talking about it on Twitter. So if people believe in aliens and you don't, they will attack you. They do not like that. But so
listen, I'm not going to attack you, but I think that aliens are real. But I'll let it go for this, just because I'm here on your podcast.
Yeah, well,
aliens are definitely real.
Let's get into it real quick. Let's get into it. Let's hear it. I want to hear it.
Look, it is my favorite thing to talk about right now is this unidentified object that entered the solar system and they've got the professor from Harvard who swears it's got to be a spaceship, right? I mean, this guy is doubling and tripling down and saying, I don't care if you believe me or not, it's a spaceship. It's got to be a spaceship. I tend to think that there's a lot of these random events that have happened over the years that, again, to your point, there's not 100% proof, but I tend to think that there's more evidence to suggest that there is some sort of life form off of Earth than not. And the probabilities go to 0% chance that there's no life is a really, really hard thing to defend year after year after year that we're looking. There's always that, chance that somewhere on some planet, and I joke all the time that, when I was in high school, there was 9 planets. Pluto was one of them. There was 9 planets, right? Now, I think the scientific community has identified over 1,000 planets, and they got all kinds of weird names. Like growing up, it was, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, Mars. Now they got like EHR-187.
Kepler 4.3, Betelgeuse, all these big ones.
I feel like I don't even know. I couldn't even name, a tenth of the planets that supposedly exist that we're aware of now.
Well, I think one thing is, like, I have an open mind. I just want somebody to show me one piece of evidence that is not, it's just got to be true, because that's the only thing.
Haven't you seen Men in Black, man? You got mind flash for a racing thing.
No, listen, I'm going off of the premise. This is my premise, that we're not inside of some kind of giant conspiracy, right? That's a whole different argument. I'm going off of if what we see is real and the research that we have been given is authentic, and we really did go to the moon, and the science community is not in a conspiracy against us, like, is there intelligent life? If you want to go down the other rabbit trail, that's a whole different argument. I'll listen to that one also, but that's a whole different thing for me. So, but I think, you make a really good point about that, about, when we were growing up, what we were told about different planets and stuff. Like, this is something that people have to understand, is that science changes what they think about things as they get new information. So, we may find some new information in the next, 10 years, probably not, but we may find some information in the next 10 years that points to one or the other direction, But, it's something that, it's like, I can't remember what it is, but it's like a joke, like, where some kid's doing this crazy dance, and somebody's like, why are you doing that dance? And they're like, oh, to scare away all the elephants. And the guy's like, what, how is that even possible? He's like, well, you don't see any elephants, do you? And that's kind of the same thing. It's like, even if there are aliens out there, like, we'll probably never know. And in the timeline of the universe, we might have even missed each other by billions or trillions of years, whatever it might be. But, people can always say that maybe they exist until we find out they don't exist, which is probably unprovable. But anyways, see, this is what I've been debating for 2 days on Twitter. And I've just been giving my opinion. It's my opinion, and I'm open-minded. I'm not closed-minded, but, people are vicious out there. So I have one guy who attacked me relentlessly, called me an idiot, told me I'm a moron, told me that if I go out to California and stare up at the sky, I'll definitely believe in aliens. And I was like, yeah.
Listen, you're probably tweeting at an alien.
Could have been. Could have been.
They're among us, man. They walk with us.
That, like I said, totally different conversation. But let's take this. Let's bring it back to crypto. Let's bring it back to crypto right now. I mean, I do think aliens, if they are out there, are in favor of crypto. But let's bring it back to crypto. Just kind of give us your opinion, Pomp, on kind of like what's the current landscape? What are we looking at right now with the market and with not just the price wise, but if you were to give us just kind of a general statement on where you think crypto is right now, what would that be?
This may be my favorite time in crypto, is when the true believers are unfazed, right? They're literally looking at the abyss, and they haven't moved, they haven't flinched, they're smiling, right? Everyone else is saying it's over, it's boring, you guys are idiots, and they're just smiling back. And I laugh all the time because I have this one image in my head of it's like the one little nerdy kid who's on the playground, and the bullies and everyone else is laughing at him and pointing and saying all this stuff. And the kid's just sitting there and they're smirking, right? And it's because they're sandbagging. They grab the basketball and they just start dunking on everybody, right? and it's just, it was like they got judged by the book got judged by the cover, if you will. And I think that a lot of what's going on in crypto right now is just, it's boring. Prices are down 80% from that all-time high. A lot of people who were the tourists or who were trying to be opportunistic got into this, and now they're moving on to the next thing, right? They're back to machine learning and artificial intelligence is taking over the world, or some other kind of hype that they think that they could be opportunistic with. But the people who actually believe in this stuff, who truly are going to be here for the next 5, 10, 20 years, they're unfazed, and they've noticed that the fundamentals actually look better than ever before, right? I keep going back to this idea that there's $410 billion of transactions that was settled on the Bitcoin network last year, right? More than Venmo, more than PayPal, more than Apple Pay. I mean, they're just blowing these other payment services out of the water. And so people, look, there's all kinds of things when you start talking about this data that people will say, oh, well, it's not fair to compare it to this, or it's not completely accurate or whatever. All I know is that people are using this stuff way more than most want to admit. And I tend to think that the last piece is that the legacy banking system's doing us a huge favor. Like these banks can't stay out of their own way, right? I mean, every couple of days, there's some new fraud case, some new money laundering case, right? The report just came out, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. And they said that $2 trillion is laundered annually through fiat currencies. $2 trillion. Crypto is a $100 billion market cap, right? I mean, just the amount of kind of criminal activity that goes on in a legacy system, it makes the crypto in the entire industry look minuscule. And so I think that as that stuff continues, crypto is only going to continue to gain popularity with the right people in the right areas or jurisdictions. And so 10 years from now, we're going to be laughing at all those people who ran away and said it was over.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely my view on it. And I definitely think that one thing that, that's been good about the space is the scammers have kind of gone away. I mean, there's definitely still scams out there, but, you don't see the ETH giveaway scams on Twitter anymore. And the reason is because back then, if you said, send me 0.5 ETH and I'll send you 10 back, like you were getting $700, $800, $400 or $500 anyways. And now, you're getting like $60, so it's not really worth the opportunity cost. But, that's been one good thing. And if you look at the people that are still left, whether it's on Twitter or whether it's on YouTube or, what other medium you're following, like you said, it's the hardcore people. It's those of us that are unfazed. I don't care if we go through this for 2 more years. Like, I'm still here because I've been through all this before. I've been through all this before several years ago. And the first time, I didn't have the faith in it, and I watched it come and go without me, And so this time, that certainly will not be happening to me. And I several years, I've looked at several different times that the difference now is because we have the media coverage now that we didn't have before. All of these similar things were happening, but they weren't talking about on CNBC. They didn't have a segment every day, where they talked about it. So, what do you feel like the media's role is right now in kind of where crypto is in the market?
Look, we need the people that cheerlead, and we need the people that are the detractors, and then we need the people that just report the facts, right? I'm a huge believer that we actually need all three, because there's some that are promoting a lot of what's going on in the crypto industry, that they're very pro crypto, if you will. Then there's some people who you can just see it, right? The coverage is incredibly biased, and they think that this is all complete, shit, frankly, and it's all going to go to zero. And I think that's actually a healthy balance, right? You kind of need both. You need the people who blindly believe almost to a fault, and you need the people who don't believe to a fault, because the truth's somewhere in between, right? And so having that counterbalance, I think, is really important. I tend to think that the people who don't believe are wrong, but look, that there's a non-zero chance that a lot of this is not real and is going to go to zero, right? Or is going to go away, if you will. And so in that case, they'll be correct. But I do think that I have a hard time, seeing a world where blockchain or crypto is non-existent, right? Because the whole idea of like the genie's out of the bottle. Yeah. And, even today, Facebook did their earnings report, and I saw somebody asked about data and decentralization and privacy. And Zuck said, look, we're fascinated by it, right? We're trying to figure out how do you decentralize things more. And so you're talking about companies that are worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Their leadership is talking about this, right? It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. What do you think, Jay Chains?
I mean, just so you guys know, my internet is cutting out, so I kind of missed half of what you guys were just saying there. So to be perfectly honest with you, this is obnoxious what's happening to me right now.
Well, okay. Well, I think that's definitely an argument that I've made as well. Not about my internet going out. That's different. But about, we've seen too many big names. We've seen too many big CEOs and CTOs of traditional finance companies and traditional tech companies moving over to crypto. And to me, the writing is on the wall for where we're going. And it's almost like, I don't know, maybe I made this reference before, but have you ever seen that movie They Live? It's like
No.
it's an old cheesy '80s movie. It's got Rowdy Piper in it, and I just recently saw it a couple years ago. I was staying at somebody's house, and they were like, "Oh, you gotta watch this movie. It's a cult classic." And so I watched it, and it's like really corny. It's really cheesy. It's really terrible, but it actually has a really crazy message, which is there's all these people that have sunglasses on, and or there's a special pair of sunglasses, and when you put the sunglasses on, you actually can see the truth. You see the truth behind all the advertising. It'll be like a picture of a Coke, but then when you look at it with the glasses, it says something like, this will kill you or sugar will kill you, and so you see the truth behind the advertising. And that's kind of how I feel in crypto. Like those of us that are in it, like we've got the glasses, we can see the truth of what is coming. We see the reality of all these big names moving into crypto. It's like these other people, they just don't see it. And it people in my family are gonna be so sad that they didn't listen to me about crypto. And other people that I encounter, my friends and business associates and stuff like that, like they're gonna be really sorry one day that they had somebody sitting there right there telling them what is coming and they ignored it. I'm sure you feel that way a lot too.
It is it's a very weird feeling to feel like something, and no matter if you go and stand on top of the building and scream it, most people aren't going to listen. But I've just come to peace with the idea that the people who want to learn will ask, and I'm super open to spending a lot of time with those people because I think it's really important that they understand, the history of money, the problems that exist today, the inequality, and all of these things that I think crypto can really address. And then look, it's also important to tell them, here's all the risks, right? Here's why this stuff could not work. Here's the challenges, right? Here's why scalability is such a problem right now, why we need to fix it, and how people are trying to do that. And you just give people information, right? Let them make their own decisions, but you really have got to put the work in if you want to learn about this, right? Nobody's going to, no financial advisor saying, oh, just drop your wealth right here, and I'm just going to buy this index for you. We'll turn around in a couple of years and you'll be happy, right? I mean, you've got to be pretty proactive right now. And I think the people who are proactive, do the work to get educated and have the discipline to come up with a thesis and stick with it are going to be rewarded pretty handsomely here over the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about education for a second because, I was talking earlier about, how a lot of the education happens on YouTube. And you said, that just recently you've kind of started seeing who some of the bigger people on YouTube are and stuff like that. Where does Pomp get his education from? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, so I try to consume as much information as I possibly can. And the main sources of that are Twitter, Telegram, and Medium. And there's certain people who I think are incredibly thoughtful and do a great job of kind of articulating ideas and having unique perspectives. And then there's people who probably aren't as good or as passionate about writing them in some form. And I get that information through talking to them, right? So I'm pretty active with, having a kind of an informal list of, here's the 50 people that I think are really smart that I want to make sure that I'm talking to fairly regularly and do my best to, what are you seeing? What are you thinking? What's worrying you right now? And just to hear that stuff is fascinating to me and super educational.
Yeah, that's definitely great. If you could just go ahead and slide me those 50 people's numbers, and then I'll right, no, oh,
Look, most of them don't even use numbers, right? Most of them are
yeah,
literally on Telegram
yeah,
or DMs and Twitter. Like, I mean, it's pretty crazy how distributed most of this industry is.
mm-hmm.
And I joke all the time. And I'm like, if you think of the, I don't know, 100 people that you interact with the most, how many of them in crypto have you met in person? 50%,
Maybe, yeah, that's probably about
right?
right, yeah.
Maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on who it is. But like
And
for
that's
the
just from
most part,
going to a ton of conferences. I mean, if I wasn't going to conferences, it'd be like two people, you know?
yeah. So like that's the beauty of it, right? Is that for most people who aren't doing this professionally, all day, guess what? They don't know. They've never met these people in person,
Yeah.
right? They're literally trusting a pseudonymous Twitter account, right? Or they're trusting a Medium piece that gets shared around, right? And it's just got somebody's name on it. And so it's pretty incredible how that stuff is able to be distributed. But look, it works. People are getting educated, and certain people, depending on the ideas they share, build up a pretty incredible kind of reputation, and it just compounds on itself.
Yeah, really looking forward to see how that continues when the market turns around, because it seems like really the social media aspect, the community of crypto, like there was definitely a subculture of cryptocurrency on Reddit and different things before the Bitcoin talk forums, obviously. But really, the social media just really sparked up last year. And so I'll be really interested to see kind of how that cycle happens again once the market finally turns around, because there's been a lot of people who kind of missed that wave of popularity, because there was a wave when things went parabolic, when YouTubers were getting 2,500 subscribers a week and Twitter followers or Twitter people were getting 1,000 a day or whatever it is. And now that's completely went away. But there's been a lot of people who've been building during that time that have the smaller accounts. And so I'm definitely interested to see kind of how the social media curve is going to go along with the markets.
Dude, Q4 2017 was wild.
Yeah.
I mean, 500, 1,000 followers a day, right? I remember there was podcasts getting 50, 100,000 downloads, YouTube videos just exploding. And everyone's looking around and like, we are either the smartest, users of the internet, or there's something very unsustainable at work here, right?
Yeah, and it was definitely unsustainable. Just when we all thought it would never go away, it just got out from under our feet. But so kind of the way I view you is almost like an advocate for cryptocurrency, right? You talk about what you have a post where you do every week. That's like the biggest news of the week, and things like that. But I want to know, like, what are your thoughts on kind of like individual projects? Do you have some individual projects that you like? The hottest one of the day right now, obviously, is Tron. Wonder what your opinion is on that. So, what are your thoughts on individual projects?
So to be honest, I'm super careful about talking about individual projects.
Mm-hmm.
I come from this mindset of we should encourage as much experimentation as possible, right? We should try to get as many smart people working on different innovations as humanly available. And what it does is it pushes everyone else, right? The competition is good. So scaling issue, great. We shouldn't just say, hey, there's one scaling solution, let's only have everyone work on that. We should have as many people trying to solve scaling as possible, because they're likely to all figure out different parts that push the scaling solutions forward together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that said, there's also a bunch of scams and all kinds of other crazy stuff that come in when you just say, look, everyone should be working on this stuff, right? The part that I probably didn't appreciate early on that I've become super sensitive to is it's really hard for folks with these large audiences to talk about projects without seeming like they are vouching for them or they are promoting them, right?
The shill.
Yeah, it's just like, it's my biggest fear in the world is to like mention a project and then turn around and have somebody go buy it and come back to me and be like, oh my God, you told me to buy it. So I'm like, whoa, I just said that I thought, they had a cool governance, approach or something. And then you feel like, that you're just kind of boxed in a corner. And so most of what I talk about sticks with Bitcoin, right? I feel like that's kind of the steady Eddie. No one can really kind of fault you for it. And also, frankly, it tends to be the thing that I think has the most merit in the entire space. But at the same time, look, it's all the normal things that people are excited about across the community, right? Ethereum, for example, look, there's a bunch of people launching dApps. Most of them aren't being used, but every once in a while you see one that pops up that actually is pretty interesting, right? It's got some usage to it. The easy one right now is like everything that Maker's doing with the CDPs and everything, right? Like it works so far, and so that's pretty cool. I think where there's a lot of challenges is once you get past the top 10, top 20 tokens, anything below that, it's just really hard for those tokens to kind of survive over a long period of time. And so there's this window in time when something gets launched, either it's going to work or it's not. And I think that we've got a lot of projects that didn't kind of gain the adoption in that period of time. And so it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens to them, right? Can they just, go sideways for a really long time and somebody keeps working on it? Do they shut down? Does nothing happen and eventually the exchanges just delist them? I'm not really sure how a lot of it will play out, but it'll be interesting to watch.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder which are the actual industries that are going to survive their most. Is it going to be the privacy coins, or is it going to be healthcare? Is it going to be energy or supply chain? Like all, industries are kind of competing for the forerunner. Obviously Bitcoin is the king of them all, but everybody is competing to be the forerunner in their particular industry. So to me, it's more of, which industry is going to be the most adoptable, or the first one to really push things forward and on a bigger scale.
Absolutely.
It's got to be the porn coins, right? Is that right? Yeah.
That didn't work well for Pornhub at all, did it?
Well, not Pornhub, but I mean you have other tokens. I'm not going to name them on air. We're family friendly, but in all seriousness, I mean if you look at a lot of the transactions that are going on the different platforms, a lot of them are gambling transactions, and people poo-poo that or whatever, but the gambling and internet is what drove, or gambling and porn is what drove the internet. And, that I think it's going to be the same thing with blockchain and crypto. We're going to see all those dApps that are in those two areas are going to do well, in my opinion, or a lot of them. So, but you bring up some really interesting points there. Personally, I put the number around the top 50. I think the top 50 are pretty stable. We see the bottom 50, it seems to just change almost every day. But especially, like I would say, the top 40, 35 to 40, I think there's a lot of good projects in there. Digibyte is a good one, in my opinion. I don't own any. I'm not a shiller for it. But like that's an example of one that's kind of in that range. Basic Attention Tokens, ZRX, they kind of go in between those ranges. Those are ones that I like. The thing about the top 20 is we're now looking at a lot of the stable coins moving up in the top 20, so it's kind of pushing some good projects down, But one thing, I went to Nitron, the Tron conference a couple weeks ago, and one thing that I came away with was that, there's this idea that when we finally have another bull run, and I think we may have touched this on our last podcast as well, but I want to get your thoughts on it. There's this idea that like it'll be the same thing we just saw. Like it'll be the low cap gems that are doing really well, and like you'll get the thing at 2 Satoshis and it'll go to 100 and you'll get rich. But what we might see in the next bull run is the winners doing more of the winning. So we might see more, the top 20 just really starting to separate itself, or the top 10 or whatever it may be, and it may look totally different than the last one. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think anyone knows for sure, right? So it's, you got to kind of keep an open mind. The beauty of take Bitcoin for example, right? Like the largest of the large caps is, if anything else is successful, I think that Bitcoin will benefit from that, right? So if the 1,342nd token all of a sudden starts shooting up the charts, Bitcoin probably benefits from that just because it's the largest, most recognizable token, right? So if the small caps, kind of like what happened to 2017, start really performing, then Bitcoin performs. At the same time, if Bitcoin performs, right, obviously Bitcoin's going to benefit, but the lower ranking tokens don't necessarily have to follow, right? So I think that there is this element of, take XRP, I think in 2017 did like 30,000% appreciation. That's incredible, right? In terms of just like from a pure number, I don't care what the financial instrument or asset is, 30,000% in 12 months is not sustainable, right? And it's not repeatable in many cases. Now, with that said, there's a risk and a reward side to investing or to looking at these assets, right? So it's, what is the probability that this asset will appreciate in a bull market in the future? And then what is the multiple in which you can anticipate, right? So I always joke and I say, well, we know for sure that Bitcoin's not going to go from 1 cent to $3,500 again.
Yeah.
Right? It's already done that.
Yeah.
And so from here, it may go from 3,500 to 5,000 to 20,000 to 50,000, 100,000. Who knows, right? We don't know what that upside looks like in the next bull market. But what we know is that it's starting at, call it, if we bottomed already, it's starting between 3,000 and 3,500, right? Maybe it goes a little lower, we'll see. What we don't know as well is with those smart caps, what does that volatility look like? And so to me, it's less about picking based on the appreciation of the price, right? And it's much more about what's the underlying fundamentals. And one of the kind of frameworks that I've started to use a lot when I talk to people is, what do you think has the highest probability of being around in 10 years? Right? 10 years is a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's literally since the start of Bitcoin till today, right? It's 10 years to the month since when it got launched. What is going to be around 10 years from now? Well, the bottom 1,000, are they going to be around?
Nope. Probably not. Probably not.
I'd say no.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe there's one or two.
We'll see a few move up, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll see, right? Now, you say, okay, what about the 501 to 1,000 ranking? Maybe. What about 100 to 500? Maybe, right? And you kind of move your way up to, well, what about the top 25? Still maybe, right? Like we actually don't know. Out of the top 25, is it 20 of the 25 are here 10 years from now? Is it one of the 25? We don't know, right? And so when you use that framework, though, I think it really kind of hones people in. And this is not a sprint, right? We saw a sprint in 2017, and we saw how that ended. And most people, the majority of people who participated in 2017 lost money in crypto.
Yes, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And the reason is because so many people jump in at the end, right? And then they lose. And so I think that if you really just take this long-term view and have that low time preference and tend to think that way, then you've got the best advantage, right? Doesn't guarantee you success, but I do think that it gives you the best advantage.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And we don't know what's going to be there. We look at the top 10, and out of the top 10, we've got 3 different platforms that are all competing with each other to be the primary platform that's used for ICOs and dApps or whatever. And, do we really need 3 to do well? I mean, there's a good chance maybe just one of them will survive. So even in the top 10, it's definitely sketchy as to what's still going to be around. But Bitcoin passes, they call it the Lindy test. You know about the Lindy test?
Yep.
Yeah. So, it's already been around for 10 years. So it's actually got a high probability of still being around 10 years. So if you kind of work backwards and you say okay, which ones have already been around for the longest, and you look at XRP, Ripple Labs or whatever has been around for a while. You look at Ethereum that's been around for a while, and you got to think that those probably have the best chance, to make it just probability wise. But, we don't know where we're going. We really have no clue. And that's what makes it so fun. But, I guess that's all we got for you, today, Pomp. Do you want to tell everybody where they can find you at?
Just on Twitter, at Pompliano. I am probably too cognizant of what's going on there and intend to respond to almost everybody. So if they got any questions or whatever, they can find me there. And then obviously, we'll have to go debate aliens on the internet now.
Yeah, we'll have to do it for sure. So
I look forward to that. I'm gonna get on that.
Well,
I won't have internet troubles then.
Yeah, y'all just don't attack me. It's just an opinion. But you know how it is on Twitter. I made my original post about it real provocative, all you alien lovers out there. I did it's for engagement. If you've been on Twitter for a while, you know how to get engagement, and so I posted it in a way that maybe made me seem closed-minded, but that was just to get people talking. And unfortunately,
I love it.
Unfortunately, I got people talking way too much. My wife is like, you got stuff to do around here. I'm like, I know. But here, just maybe one more alien post.
Maybe we can tag in the ancient aliens guy and we can all talk about it.
We need to get him on the show. That's what we need. So, well, thank you so much for joining us. Definitely, it's been a blast talking to you. A lot of great insight. Shout out to our sponsors, monarchtoken.io and also Huddle Fuel. And that's all we got. You got anything else, Jay Chains?
That's it. Have yourself a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Pomp. Appreciate it, man.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for listening to Beards and Bitcoins. If you like what you heard, show these guys some love and rate review on SoundCloud or iTunes. Also, remember you can always find the guys on social media. The show Twitter page is @BeardsBitcoins. You'll find direct links to BitBoy and JChains from there. Make sure you check for updates, announcements, and contests. Good luck to all who enter. See you next time.